Welcome back to Culberth Mini Projects. Today isn't necessarily a project, but I wanted to give you a walk around with our wood boiler that we have here. This one's a little bit larger than most people have. This is actually a top load. I'll do another video where we walk through how it works, how it functions. What I want to do is go through just a troubleshooting scenario for you as you look at one of these log boilers. I suspect that most are the same. So the logic behind a log boiler is, in this case, we have water and we have fuel and fire. Okay, and what we're trying to do is use the fire to warm the water, and then that water goes into the house, and that could be done through radiant floor heat. That could be done through some kind of heat exchanger that's in your furnace. We can get into all of that, but today I just want to talk about some of the challenges we've had with this wood burner throughout the probably 4 winters that we've used it. And so yeah, let's take a look at this. We'll start looking at the parts and the mechanisms of it, and then I'll tell you how I troubleshoot it. Okay, so here is the basic internal workings of the wood boiler, the log boiler. So I'm going to show you what we got here, okay? First things first is this thing's all kind of run off electricity. So this wire right here is what feeds everything in here, okay? There is a thermostat right here that you can see. I've got this set at just over 160 degrees, and it's following a copper wire that actually goes up into the water jacket, we'll call it, okay? Then you've got 2 pipes that come out of here, okay? Both of these are actually return pipes, okay? So the water goes in the top, it's heated, and then it comes out the bottom. So here are your 2 outlets. So once the water's warmed, you can use this one. This is the out and that's the in. And then over here, we're only using it on one. So you could use it on 2 different buildings if you want. So this is the hot water that's coming out of there. Okay. It's coming out of the bottom. It cycles through the house and it comes back into the top of this. So basically it's just a water cycle, okay? So when you're checking this, if you have a problem where your house isn't heating, the first thing I do is I make sure I have electricity. Now, I can hear that this thing is running, so I know I have electricity to this panel, okay? Second thing I look for is I want to know, is this pump running? Now, when I touch it, I can actually feel it. And man, that thing's actually warm. Hope that's okay. But anyways, I can feel it vibrating. I can feel it running, okay? The third thing is I want to know if my fan's working, okay? So right now the fan is off. There's power to it, but the fan is off. So if I reach in here, I have a little screwdriver that I just keep, and this screwdriver is actually about the same width as what I need for my thermostat there. I'm going to turn this thermostat up and I'm going to listen for the fan to turn on, okay? So I'll slide this in here. You hear that fan turn on? Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it back to 160. That's on now, so it's going to run its cycle and then it'll turn off. Now look down here. When the fan turns on, this actuator turns. You see that starting to rotate? That'll rotate over, okay? What's happening is there's a metal baffle inside right here that's actually opening and closing, kind of like a choke on a you know, in it like a small engine, okay? So what's happening is it's drawing air and it's pushing it inside this firebox, okay? Under the firebox, we've got is actually the tray that collects the ashes. So one challenge with this is if this tray is completely clogged up, you're not going to be able to get air underneath it, okay? So we'll get into some of the troubleshooting, but you can see it blowing out. That's because the air is passing through this and right out the edge. So we want the air to actually come up into the fire, okay? All right, so a couple things that I've learned that have gone wrong on this is probably really why you're watching this video, okay? I highly recommend that you get some of these gauges, okay? And I'm trying to think if I can read this. Brannon? I think it's a Brannon. I can actually, we'll show you, we can put it in the video, but we'll show you what this Brannon looks like. And it really gives you an idea of what's going on with the water. So if you look down here, my hot water coming out is going out at right at about 150 degrees, okay? Now if you look up here, the water cycling back is at, let's say, 145. So that's like super efficient. That means that my water is going all the way over to the house, through the floors in the garage, through my furnace and back to me, and it's really only about a 10-degree difference. That's really impressive. One other problem that we had was the house wasn't being heated, but I had electricity, the pump was running, and the fan was even working. And I couldn't understand why wasn't the house heating. Well, when I looked at the thermostat, I had the thermostat set at 160 degrees. But then when I looked at my water going out, it was only coming out at about 90 degrees. So that discrepancy is, in this case, that would have been like 70 degrees discrepancy, right? What had happened was the thermostat wire is actually way up here, okay? The water level in the water jacket that's around this got low enough. I didn't monitor it well. It got low enough to where there was air above the water. So the thermostat was reading the warm air above the water and not the water itself. As soon as I filled that water jacket back up with water, it immediately corrected the problem, and the thermostat functioned and was reading how we wanted it to. It was actually reading the water temperature and not just the air. So that would be number one. That was a big issue. Another one we had was, let's see, what did we have? It wasn't warming up. That's what it was. I was having trouble getting the water temperature up here, okay? And it was the same issue. Water temperature's not up. It was full of water. It wasn't a thermostat issue. What we actually found, the fan was blowing good. I pulled out the tray on the bottom, emptied it real good. I was sticking things in there, trying to pull it, trying to make sure the water would flow well. And what we found is when we opened up the top, there was a blockage. We had cooked all this, I say cooked, but you know, the log boiler, we had cooked all of this maple that was really, really fresh. And it basically like sealed the bottom. It melted to the bottom, and there was no air allowed to come in through the bottom. So let's go take a look. I'll open this up and I'll show you how the air is flowing right now while the fan's on. All right, so if we take a look, you can see that air is clearly coming through that side. Now, if you look to the left, this thing's full of ash, and that's okay. So there's not a lot of air coming in from the bottom over here, but that will eventually work its way over and heat this whole thing. But what we had was basically a thin layer of this sap that turned to when I say, I mean, it turned to like diamond. I don't know, somebody could tell me what it was, but it was this, I can't think of the word, but it was like black crystal. It was the craziest stuff I ever saw in my life, but it was just like a stone. And it took forever to actually beat it out of there and pull it out, which was kind of a pain because the thing's running. So I do recommend be careful when you burn your maple or anything like that. I try to put some good wood at the bottom and then let the maple kind of drain onto that. And if I can help it, I don't even burn maple unless I let it season a little bit. Now, the third thing that we had go wrong for us was the fire wasn't getting hot enough, and I didn't know why. So first thing I did was I checked my fuel source. I had wood in there. It was burning, but it wasn't burning hot enough. And what was going on was this actuator right here was like frozen, so it wouldn't allow it to rotate, okay? So we came in here and I just lubricated this a little bit, and that way it allowed this thing to turn. But if this won't turn, even if the pump's on, the fan's on, everything's working perfectly, the fire's burning, if you don't check this is like something you could totally overlook. And by the way, every time you have a problem with this, it's 20 below, it's freezing, it's hard to get your brain even functioning, and you're out here, it's super cold. But anyways, I figured out that this actuator wasn't doing what it needed to do, and the baffle wasn't turning. So the fan's blowing, but it wasn't allowing very much air at all. And it was the boiler at that point was failing to heat our house. To show you what this actuator looks like or the baffle when it actually closes, I'm just going to turn the thermostat and kind of shortcut this turning the fan off. Okay, so all right, drop it down to 150. You can see this turning. If that thing doesn't rotate all the way and actually close, you're going to have a big problem. And that's working really, really well. Awesome. Go through this first off. Make sure you have electricity. Make sure you have wood in the burner. Make sure that your thermostat is reading similar to the temperature gauges on your pipes. Another thing to keep in mind is if you get one of those temperature guns, if you have copper line, it doesn't reflect. You won't get a good reading. So that's why I use these temperature gauges. Once you get through that, make sure the pump is running. Once you get through that, make sure your fan is running. Once you get through that, make sure that the air, the baffle is open to feed the fire. And then the last thing is make sure that the air is visibly coming through from the bottom of the grates feeding your fire. And I think you would be just fine. This is, I can't think of anything else that could really go wrong on this machine. Oh, don't forget water. Make sure your water levels are up. That ties into your thermostat. But other than that, I don't know that much can go wrong. The last thing I'll share with you is that this Cryotech negative 100 AL, I think that means aluminum. This is what we use. It's number 35283. I actually laminated this so that I could always remember where it was, but this is the glycol that we put in our system. And I think we did something like, I don't know if we did 10 5-gallon buckets, maybe 50 gallons, 40 gallons, something like that. And then we mixed that with our water so it wouldn't freeze. But that's what we've been running. We've had good luck with it. This stuff, to my knowledge, doesn't evaporate, but water will. So over time, you still have to add water to the system because it will evaporate into the air. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit those notifications so you can get more content from Culber's Mini Projects. Thank you.